Here we are, it's 2023, and I'm sure many of you are starting to get ready to take your IELTS test. Well, you've come to the right place, because today we'll be looking at how you can pass IELTS in 2023. The very first thing you want to do is download the IELTS Goal Setter, which you can get for free by clicking the link in the description of this video. In this goal setter, you can write in daily and weekly IELTS preparation goals, and there's also a checklist where you can put in more specific tasks that you should complete before test day. Throughout this video, we're going to fill in a lot of this goal setter, so I highly recommend you download it, print it out, and fill in yours as we go. In this video, we're going to be looking at 10 things you can do in 2023 to make sure that you get the score you need on test day. And I'm going to show you the most up-to-date, high-quality resources you can use to prepare properly. Now, you might be planning on taking your IELTS exam in a few weeks, in a few months, or maybe even late this year. Whenever that is, you're going to want to be prepared. So, the first thing you want to do is set clear goals. So this takes a few steps. First, identify the score you want, then figure out where you are now. You can do this easily by taking a mock test. If you're at a 6 and you need to get to a 7, for example, you then need to figure out what it will take to reach your desired goal. Only you will know what it is you need to do to get that desired score. But here are a few examples that you could write down. For listening, it could be do one listening practice test every 2 weeks. Or for writing, it could be practice using a wider range of sentence structures. Or reduce your grammar mistakes by 50%. As I said, getting feedback from a mock test or from a teacher is the best way to find out what exactly your goals should be. But you might think of more as you watch this video, so let's keep going. My next tip is to make sure you fully understand the test. Even native speakers or highly proficient English users will need to understand what they need to do on test day. For example, when you see a true, false, not given reading question like this, do you immediately know what to do and how to correctly answer the question? Or for a multiple choice question like this one, are you familiar with how to eliminate the incorrect options and find the right one? The best way to understand the test from top to bottom is to get access to a large amount of practice questions, so that when you see a question on test day, you're not wasting your time figuring out what you need to do. My recommendation is to check out e2testprep.com. We have hundreds of high-quality practice questions on all parts of the test. Even if you're familiar with the test, you're still going to want to practice. So definitely write somewhere in the checklist section of your goal setter, find and complete practice questions. As you learn more about the test, you can even get more specific with your goals by focusing your attention on certain tasks like sentence completion or map labeling. My third tip is to get help. It's very important to find allies before you take your test, to find people who can help you improve. Now, there are a few ways you can do this. You might know a good IELTS teacher who you can get in touch with. But there are also some great places you can go on the internet. Of course, our E2 IELTS YouTube channel is a great place to start. We've got a lot of helpful free videos there that will give you good advice. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you're looking for more teacher interaction though, you can check out our website and register for one-on-one tutorials with one of our expert teachers. You might even have some friends who have taken the test. It's definitely worth asking them for preparation advice. This next tip is important. Build strong reading and listening habits. If you're in a situation where you're not interfacing with the language regularly, this is going to have a big impact. In fact, it's usually one of the first things I ask my students about when I start teaching a class. Now, if you use English regularly in your work or in school, then this might not be a priority. But if your scores are currently around a 6 or lower, you will definitely want to build or strengthen these habits. Reading and listening really help in all areas. The more regularly you are exposed to authentic and accurate language forms, the faster you will improve. Proficient users of English use a wide range of internalized habits to make their ideas clear. They stress certain words. They clarify ideas with specific phrases in both writing and speaking. You definitely want more exposure to this. The more exposure you have to this, the faster you'll begin to internalize those structures and words. My advice for building reading habits is this: read the news. This could be the BBC News or Al Jazeera English. Newspapers or news apps have articles on health, environment, technology, and business, which will expose you to a wide range of useful ideas and language. You can even read about more fun topics like sports, movies, and art. All of these topics could appear in an IELTS exam. Recently, I had a student who wrote this sentence about athletes' salaries in one of my classes. Athletes are exposed to high-level risks, including career-ending injuries such as concussions or severe knee sprains. Note how they have used very specific health vocabulary: concussions, severe knee sprains. But also note these three words: career, ending, and injuries. Those are three intermediate words that become advanced when you put them together in the topic of sports and health, because they are specific to the topic. And honestly, it's near impossible for teachers to predict what exact vocabulary you're going to need on test day. And lots of students try to memorize lists of vocabulary and, well, if that helps you, that's fine, but I would always prioritize strong reading habits, as they are going to help improve reading speed, comprehension, as well as vocabulary and grammar range and accuracy for your speaking and writing. As for listening habits, here's my advice: listen to news radio or podcasts. I strongly recommend checking out the BBC, CBC, that's in Canada, or ABC National Radio, which is the Australian radio station. I find that the announcers at these companies have the most professional and clearest pronunciation. They'll model sentence stress and intonation in a very intentional way. Now, if you're looking for a good podcast for grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation, my first recommendation would be to check out our podcast, Everyday English with E2. They're short and they have lots of great ideas on how to make small improvements to your English so you can pass your test in no time. I definitely put it into the checklist on the goal setter. Listen to the Everyday English with E2 podcast. One thing to listen for in podcasts or on the radio is something called sentence stress. I find this is the biggest pronunciation hurdle for most students. Now, let me be clear. It isn't about accent. It's about stress and intonation. You don't have to sound just like a Canadian or a Brit or an Aussie, but to make your ideas clearer and more precise, you will need to emphasize words in a deliberate way if you're aiming for a higher score. We have a video all about sentence stress here on our YouTube channel. I highly recommend watching it before you start preparing for your speaking test. If I were you, I'd write into the checklist in the goal setter, watch Band 7+ IELTS speaking tips for IELTS exam preparation on YouTube. The more you listen to sentence stress in podcasts and on the radio, the more you'll be able to naturally use it in your speaking. So building these listening habits is super important. Even 10-15 minutes every morning can make a big difference. Let's move on. Tip number 5 is to focus on meaningful grammar and vocabulary. Now, this is where things can get a little contentious in the world of IELTS teaching. What vocabulary and grammar should I use? Well, we'll start with grammar, and if I'm being honest, I feel like we said most of what we need to say in one of our videos, 7 words to get a 7 or more in IELTS speaking. This video covers words like if, and more, and which. And yes, you absolutely should use these words and grammatical structures to get a high score. Definitely put this video in the checklist of the speaking section of your goal setter. Let's quickly look at a few sentences. If people want to live longer lives, they should look at their lifestyle, including their diets, exercise habits, and sleep, to see if any modifications are needed. Now, this first sentence is dense. It has a lot of ideas, and we can see a cause and effect relationship. One condition requires another. If you modify your lifestyle, you can live a longer life. Now, we can make the grammar simpler. Some people want to live longer. They should change their lifestyle. They should look at their diet, exercise habits, and sleep. So this sentence contains the same information. The grammar is correct, but the links between the ideas are not as clear and smooth. And the vocabulary is a bit simpler. It's not wrong, but it doesn't communicate the information as clearly. Let's look at another way people could present the same information. Those wishing to live longer should take stock of their habits, including diet, exercise, and sleep, and make adjustments where needed. So, just like in the first sentence, the if sentence, we've got complex grammar, and the ideas are clearly linked. This sentence has reduced participle clauses indicating a higher level of flexibility and the potential to fit more information into fewer sentences. For those aiming for a 7 or higher, these types of structures can help a lot. Now, as always, we've got a sentence here that is presented without context and without further explanation. So what comes before and after the sentence is actually also very important. We do have a video that talks about using grammar for cause and effect in essays, which you should definitely put into your checklist. Watch How to Get a High Score in IELTS Writing Task 2 on YouTube. The video covers a few ways of describing effect, but as always, the more you read, the more you'll see this grammar in action, and the better your ability to use it will be. Now, in terms of vocabulary, what should the focus be? My advice would be to focus on topic-related vocabulary. On the topic of health or sports, words like diet-related disease or career-ending injury. Or for public transport, receive government funding, quality infrastructure projects, or immediate public benefit. These are the kinds of words, and believe me, there are plenty more, that help you be specific when specificity is needed. Now, there are some other people out there giving advice to use fancy sounding words all the time. And to that I say, if you use these words, please make sure you use them correctly and meaningfully. But honestly, if you're aiming for a high score, more precise and topic-specific words are probably a better investment of your time. Next tip. Learn from your mistakes. This is one of the most important things, not just for IELTS, but for life. If you make a mistake, don't get upset, don't feel down. Look at the error. Figure out why it happened. Internalize the lesson. This is for all parts of the test. If it's the reading test and you get a true, false, not given question wrong, figure out why you were wrong and understand why the right answer is right. If it's the multiple choice question in listening, figure out why you were wrong and understand why the right answer is right. It's okay to make a mistake. I know that sometimes when you do look at the question for a while, you just can't figure it out. Well, just let it go, come back to it later. You'll probably see where you went wrong, and that will help you improve. Confusion is a key part of learning. Not understanding is the first step towards understanding. Now, I also know some of you might be saying, but Mark, I make so many mistakes. It will take forever to look at them all. To which I will say, yes, it will. Trust me, if you get 25 out of 40 in the reading test, and then you spend 2 weeks reviewing the mistakes and reading, you'll do much better on the next test. Maybe there will be some questions you never fully figure out, but as long as you're improving, who cares? Keep going. Now, for speaking, you should probably write this into your goal checklist. Get feedback. It's hard to learn from your mistakes if you don't know what they are. That's why teacher support is essential. As for writing, if your teacher is like me, you'll get lots of red-colored feedback. In this case, look at the feedback and figure out how to stop doing whatever it is you shouldn't be doing, or start doing what you aren't doing. If you aren't organizing your ideas clearly, focus on that. So, if you are making grammar mistakes in your writing, you might put into your goal setter, write one task every week, get feedback, reduce errors by 50% in 3 weeks. And of course, you'll have to do a fair amount of work to accomplish that, but of course, writing it down is the first step in reaching that goal. This leads to our next point. Tip number 7, improve grammatical accuracy. Now, this one can be a big challenge, grammatical and lexical accuracy. And it's not something that you can fix in a day, but in a few weeks, you can improve a lot. I want you to look at something. This graph comes from research done by Heidi Dulé, Marina Burt, and Stephen Krashen. It shows how when kids and adults learn English, that they start to produce correct forms in a predictable order. So you can see here that when learning English, people typically produce articles and irregular past tense correctly before third-person singular. They don't learn correct grammar instantly or because of perfect teaching. It's acquired over time, which means that they consistently improve their accuracy with time, input, output, and a little feedback. So let's think about that basic grammar structure, the third-person singular. If you're a native speaker child or an adult English learner, you'll likely start by formulating it incorrectly. But over time, you'll start to say it correctly sometimes. And this frequency will increase until you're mostly formulating it correctly, at which point it is acquired. So it's not about understanding or studying the correct structures, it's about acquiring them or internalizing the correct usage. Of course, individually, the order might change. Some people might acquire these grammatical functors in a slightly different order, but it usually follows the order from the graph. Now, I know what you're thinking. Third-person singular, I know what that is. I understand it. And yes, your brain understands it, but maybe your mouth doesn't. So how do you acquire it faster? Well, the more you read and listen, the faster you will produce correct grammar. In fact, over on our General English channel, E2 English, we have a lot of videos covering important grammar points for the speaking test. Simple past, indefinite articles, and more. Here's one video that I recommend checking out. It's all about the third-person singular grammar point that I just mentioned. And in it, I cover a lot of the more technical aspects of how to use it. Write this down in the speaking section of your goal setter. Watch, avoid this mistake in your English speaking test on YouTube. And while you're at it, make sure you subscribe to the E2 English channel. Those videos will help you not just review the grammatical rules, but help you think about how to practice using them in a meaningful way that will help you fully internalize the language. Check them out. Tip number 8, get deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is when you have a specific goal in mind with your study time. Let's imagine you sit down with your writing feedback. The feedback says you're making mistakes with your subject-verb agreements. And you look at your writing and you find the mistakes. You then take action to fix this one thing. You rewrite the sentences correctly. You review the grammar rules. You make new sentences using that grammar and maybe get someone to check them. You can also do this with your vocabulary. I would write something like this into the goal setter. Improve vocabulary. Learn 15 new words per week. Put new vocabulary into sentences. Or maybe fix singular plural errors, or used past tense properly when speaking. Let's move on to tip number 9, and I know you're gonna love this one. Sleep. That's right, sleep. I told you you'd like this one. Well, it's true. You need to get as much sleep as you can. First of all, sleep is what allows your brain to transfer memories from short-term to long-term memory. So make sure you are optimizing your sleep. Also, on test day, you definitely want to be well rested. They have done so many studies on the effect of sleep and academic performance. Surprise, surprise, the group that gets a good night of sleep does better on their memory recollection task. In the description of this video, I've put a link to my absolute favorite TED Talk by Matt Walker about the importance of sleep. Okay, here is the 10th and final piece of advice. Stay positive. Don't beat yourself up about forgetting things or making the same mistakes again and again. This is normal. It's part of the process. Anytime I make a mistake in one of the foreign languages that I speak, yes, of course, sometimes I get annoyed, but most of the time I remind myself that I am getting better. I'm better than I was before, and that I just need to review that mistake and the correct form again so that I will remember. Every time you get mad at yourself, you just make it harder to learn. Every time you make a mistake, it's actually an opportunity to improve. Decide how you respond, and you'll decide how quickly you improve. Well, there you go. That's it. Those are our top tips for getting the score you want in 2023. Of course, I highly recommend checking out e2testprep.com. It has everything you need for IELTS test preparation, including mock tests, practice questions, tutorials, live classes, and more. You can even sign up for free if you like. Anyways, that's it for this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you won't miss any of our new 2023 videos. I hope that this year brings you an irrefutable plethora of happiness. See ya.